Hey guys, Deathbyphiw here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to talk to you about why 6v6 is not the answer and 5v5 is the way we should be doing it. And I'll go back to thinking about Overwatch 1 days. I know we have a lot of nostalgia to when the game was new. And a lot of people say, well, Overwatch went into the gutter and it's trash and it's not playable anymore and it's not fun. All that may be true, but the reason why Overwatch 1 felt so good was when it originally came out, you all seem to forget it was game of the year. It was a new, fun, exciting, fast paced first person shooter that was just fresh and new to the environment. It wasn't these slower paced games like Counter Strike. Another example, which wasn't out yet, it's not a slower paced game like Valorant. I mean, if you like those games, that's cool and fine with you. But the whole point of Overwatch was it was fast paced, quick games, uh, usually quick to get into games and just have fun with your friends and try new and different things. We go back to Overwatch 1, and we think about 6v6, and we think about higher elo. Higher elo play was basically unplayable the last few years of Overwatch 1 because queue times were just egregious. And if you played tank, um, when you had two tanks, two TPS, and two supports, the queue, like you'd get a game right away, but oftentimes, like if you were a GM tank, you'd be put into like a diamond lobby or like a low masters lobby, and you never really had a fun time because you know it's crazy to be put into such lower lobbies. The other thing that would happen is if you were a GM player or a top 500 player, you would end up getting a second tank on your team who was like diamond, and they would get rolled the entire game. And it just was unfun, and it happened almost every single lobby in Overwatch 1. And it made the game stale, it made the game unfun, it made the game just, in my opinion, way worse. So that's the first thing as to why I think 6v6 is not the answer. Um, Queue times for most other roles like DPS and support were completely out of this world in Overwatch 1. Yeah, they're not great in Overwatch 2 as you get higher elo, but they are quite a bit better than Overwatch 1, especially when you think about not having to fill another six slot. A six person, you need that extra person to find the lobby to get your game going. So that's another thing. Queue times. The other thing is like just a mismatch in the matchmaking. Yeah, everyone says, "Oh, it feels like my games are the matchmaking is so bad." Blah 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 blah. But it was way worse in Overwatch 1. Like I said, you'd get put into those lower lobbies if you played tank, or you'd get a lower lobby ranked tank player in a high rank game, and it would just be a complete and utter egregious game, and it won't be fun. So keep that in mind. Um, and I'm trying to think like what would make this better, right? How would 5v5 feel better? And we have all these issues with Overwatch 2. And I think it comes down to balancing. From a tank's perspective, it feels so unfun and stressful to play the tank role. You have so much riding on your shoulders. I mean, you have to create space, you have to do damage, you have to help out your team, you have to swap, right? That's another big thing is a lot of people in Overwatch, especially in Overwatch 2, they're one tricks. And if you don't play Counterwatch in Overwatch today, it's especially worse than what it was in Overwatch 1 because of the 6v6 setup. You would have a second tank, and that off tank role, would kind of help you out a little bit. But with the 5v5 side, it makes it a little bit more difficult to do that. And that's another reason also is like the reworks and the balancing of the tank heroes. They removed and changed a lot of the heroes' abilities and the way they're played from Overwatch 1, where they're not really off. There's no real like off tank anymore. And since that doesn't exist, how would that work in 6v6? They would have to rework all the heroes all over again, change things. And let me tell you, the last couple years of Overwatch were not fun at all. I've had a lot more fun playing Overwatch 2 than Overwatch 1. So to me, the key thing to make this better, to make 5v5 feel better, is remove the nostalgia out of your brain. That nostalgia factor is a total and complete bias in our minds. Like, yeah, we had so much fun the first few years, the first like 10 seasons of Overwatch 1. Get that out of our mind. It was a fresh, new thing. Anything fresh and new, when it's well made, is gonna feel good, and you're gonna long for those days because that was the first time that you enjoyed it. Um, Balancing is key. Getting rid of like, or making heroes that are like really unskillful to be good at bad, or not bad, but worse would be better, in my opinion. And no point and state in this game should a bad, like an unskillful hero be meta. And I say, think of players, heroes like Moira on the support side, right? How unfun it is when you try to play Genji, which requires a lot of skill. And I'm a support main speaking who plays a lot of Moira. And you just swap to Moira and you just take that Genji out of the fight and make it unplayable, and they have to swap to something else. Yeah, you could say get good, get more skills, blah, blah, blah. You should be able to play into your counters, but we're not top 500 players. The vast majority of us, we're not the best of the best. So it will be unfun when you have to go against that because it's counterwatch, basically. So balancing is very important. I'm fine with counters existing, but they should never be so powerful where it just feels like you can't play a hero because the enemy team swapped to my counter. I think of like playing Diva against Zarya. Yeah, if you're really good at Diva, maybe you can make the Diva work. But in most cases, the Zarya will just completely flat out shut down the Diva, and it makes it unplayable. Balancing is key. Making tank heroes a bit stronger, making all heroes all around the board, especially the high skilled heroes, better and more rewarding to play, and reversing any sort of lower skilled heroes and make that less rewarding to play. I'm not saying to put them in the gutter, still be viable in certain comps and maps, but not be completely and utterly broken, or just not be really, really strong and be a top 5 pick or top 3 pick, whatever, for that specific role. I think if we figure out a way to make the tank role more fun and less stressful and more rewarding, 5v5 would feel better, because I've been queuing up tank right now. I'm a support and DPS player, and let me tell you, there's a lot on your shoulders. There's a lot of stress, and there's a lot that you have to do as a tank player. And you mess up and die, you lose that fight. You lose that point. And if you're a DPS or a support player, you tend to have a bit more freedom. Especially now in Season 9, more so for the DPS players. There's a lot more freedom from a DPS perspective, a lot more flexibility. You can be countered and still, do okay. But there's a lot more flexibility. Whereas a tank, you're the one tank versus the other tank, and if they counter you and swap, it's almost like you have to swap, and you're playing like musical chairs on what hero am I going to play for this game. I've played games where I walk out as I walk out of the gate as Diva, and the enemy tank ends up getting killed, and they come back as Zarya. Then I go back to spawn and I come back as Zarya, and I start diffing their Zarya, so he comes out as let's say Winston, who does pretty decently against Zarya. Let's say I swap and I go, I don't know, to deal with the Winston, I swap and I go something else. Like I go Orisa. He comes back out as Zarya. Like things like that just happen all the time from the tank's role, and there's nothing else to fall back on. So balancing would be the best thing to do, the best way to make things better, make higher skilled heroes more rewarding, and less skilled heroes less rewarding. And also, all in all, make the tank role a little bit more fun. Maybe allow them to do a bit more damage, or give them some reworks that changes up the whole meta. Like there shouldn't be tanks that are completely unplayable. Reinhardt is one tank that just has been in the gutter most of Overwatch 2. He was kind of almost like the face of the franchise from the tank role perspective, and he's just so bad. Meanwhile, Tracer, who's the true face of the franchise, she's absolutely bonkers right now and full on S+ tier hard meta and broken. at the current moment. So how does that make sense? More fun tanks to play, higher skill tanks to play, make it better, make it more balanced, and I think that will fix the problem. If you end up having more fun playing the game from a tank's perspective, 5v5 works. We can't go change the 6v6. It just queue times would be crazy. Matchmaking would be even worse. It would just be way too hard to try and figure out how to balance. You would have to rework tons of heroes and to make it work. And it just was a long-standing problem from the Overwatch 1 perspective. So, a lot of you watch my videos and my shorts, but I'm going to ask if you can, please, please, please like this video. Also, sub to my YouTube channel, share this with folks, drop a comment, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. It really does mean a lot to me. I really do appreciate it. And as always, happy gaming.